Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. Today we are going to talk about 2023 energy and what is going on in 2023 and why this time of year everyone feels a little sluggish, feels a little tired, and why sometimes that tiredness can even start back in the summertime. I've done a couple videos where we talked about the years. Even though there technically is no linear time, you're going to find there's a cadence to every year that you go through. There's a different focus on different things. You're finishing up one thing, starting something else. You're usually finishing up a lot of things and starting a lot of different things. There might be a main theme or focus to every year, but there are templates for every year you go through. You're going to either have a human template, if you're still in your human consciousness, i.e. your human body. You're going to have a higher vibrational template, depending on where you are in your process and your ascension process. Your template's going to match the vibration of your body. And as your body's vibration raises, remember, consciousness goes first. We hold the consciousness and it pulls the body up. It pulls the vibration of the body up into different realities so they can kind of form around us in a sense. It's kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Do we actually arrive at a new reality, or does it kind of materialize around us? It materializes around us because of the new hologram we're now giving off. So usually the next year starts coming in. Normally I start to notice it around August. Some people even say they might get it in July. They'll start getting the kind of codes and templates for the next year. Usually by 11/11 you get to November, it gets a lot stronger, 12/12. It's not like on January 1st, all of a sudden you get all your templates for the year. You've already been getting them. That's why there's a lot of fatigue this time of year for a lot of people, because you're doing so much. You're processing the old, you're trying to get the old moved out, you're moving in the new. Usually the new won't even really hit the ground running. I usually notice it around March or April, I feel like, of every year. Usually I'm kind of finishing up the old stuff. I'll be finishing up 2022 stuff and then starting 2023, then starting the kind of the new year stuff, kind of around March or April. So just be aware if you have any inclinations about, what is coming forth in 2023 for me. What do I feel like I'm supposed to be doing? Because remember, you're going to get it all kind of downloaded energetically, and that's how you're going to get it. By the time it gets here in the physical, it's kind of old news. And you see a lot of people say that and talk about that. I don't usually shoot in here, so I'm trying to get comfortable. You're going to find that a lot of times when you're starting to go through your next year, that you might get bits and pieces of it. You might just feel a certain way, and sometimes you really just don't feel anyway. There just might be a general excitement to the year. Normally you have an idea, and you'll have more of that, like unconsciously you'll know. And the higher your vibration goes, the higher your consciousness goes, you'll start to know consciously what you're going to feel drawn to that year. You might see a lot of people leave. You might see new people come in. That'll usually mark your vibration shifting too. I don't usually like to go into zodiac signs, but I'm going to just mention it here because it kind of popped in a little bit. You might find yourself being drawn to different zodiac signs than you're usually drawn to. And even though zodiac signs are kind of a human thing, your sign does get purified as you go through ascension too, and you're going to start taking on the traits that are kind of I don't want to use negative or positive, but would be looked at as the higher line version of that zodiac sign. It all has its not so great qualities and the better qualities of those signs. It has kind of the very humanness of the sign and the more angelic parts of the sign. So you might find yourself seeing different aspects of people. You might find people going away. You might find yourself kind of drawn to different places, drawn to different people. It all has to do with your template for the year. It's all encoded in your template for the year. So even if you might not feel that, know that all that's going on. So if you feel a little more tired than normal, that's why. But don't expect everything on 1/1 to feel like, oh, here it all is. It's this massive download. You've been getting it all year. I would say normally for me, the Lion's Gate, the 8/8 is kind of when it starts for me. And then I'll kind of start winding down things for 2020, the old year, 2022 for linear time markers now, and starting to look at 2023. But one of the things that I noticed that I kind of slipped a little bit back into, and you really don't slip back into it, you kind of go deeper into it, is where you accept less. Why do we accept less? Why do we give less? When we could do more, why don't we? So it's kind of like almost like a boomerang effect. If we accept less, we're kind of putting out the will take less. And then in a way, we kind of will look back on ourselves and go, but why am I doing less? And I don't mean doing something physically in a sense. Sometimes it could be. Sometimes it could just be energetic support. And we're talking about support in a sense. Why do we not require the highest possible version of a person? Why do we not require the highest possible respect to be given to us? Why do we accept less? If we keep accepting less, then we're going to continue to get less. We're going to be treated that way. And sometimes this is not as straightforward. Our human consciousness would say, well, as long as you're not getting, completely beaten down every day, maybe you're getting treated fine. We have to go kind of deeper than that. And it's not just the treatment of your physical treatment. It can be, but sometimes it's deeper than that. Most of the time it is deeper than that. It's, what do we allow? Are we in relationships where we give 100% and we've always given 100%, yet everyone else is giving, 10%, or they're giving 0, but you're carrying the whole reality? A lot of times you're going to be shown that. And as your body template changes, in a sense, as it rewrites and as it starts looking at different realities you're going to bring in, you're going to be faced with the ones where you are requiring less, because that is a denser vibration you're holding. It has to do with what we think we're worth. There's a self-worth issue there too. Like, why do we feel like we have to continue to do more when the other people in our reality aren't? And then we have to flip it around too and say, well, why am I not doing more? Why am I doing less when I could do more? Sometimes it could be as simple as assisting someone who needs assistance, whether you really know the person or not. Sometimes it's, how do we show up every day? Do we show up in our highest consciousness, in our highest aspect, or are we not? Do we not want to do something because it's not convenient? Do we not want to do something because it doesn't fit into our plan for the day? Are we not showing up as our angelic aspect? And sometimes it flips. Sometimes we always show up as our angelic aspect, and that in that moment might not be the highest aspect that's needed. Maybe that's too soft for that person, and we have to show up as a different aspect, maybe more of a galactic Syrian aspect, which is a more no-nonsense aspect. If you have not started embodying galactic aspects, that would be a great place to start when you're trying to kind of when you get into requiring more. When we stop accepting less, we're kind of standing in our power a little bit and almost drawing the line in the sand, so I know it's not acceptable behavior. It's not acceptable behavior to be treated as if your reality doesn't matter. It's not as important as someone else's reality. I saw this explained it was actually on a comedy sketch. It wasn't even on everything you can look at and different from a different perspective. But it's just one of the lines in there was, one person said, but we were kind of succeeding together. And the other person was like, are we succeeding together? Because it doesn't feel like we're succeeding together. It feels like you're succeeding and I'm, you're not sharing anything. It kind of goes back to, when do people show up? Do they show up when everything's great and they want to share that abundance with you and that amazingness with you? Or do they show up when they need something? I had so many people in my life that showed up when they needed something. And when I needed something, they would actually say, wow, I really felt bad not assisting you there, even though I could, because you always assist me. And when you start hearing that, it kind of almost shakes you more awake in a sense, where you're like, yeah, why am I doing that? Now, there are some times when we know we have certain soul agreements to fill and we're supposed to be there. And I've said lots of times, you're going to be there for people that are not going to be there for you. And we know that. We're also supposed to show them what a higher aspect is and show them how we show up every time, that we will be there every time, unless it becomes an issue where you're there every time and they're not doing any work on themselves or any inner work to get themselves to a different place. And then it becomes a drain, and then you have to look at that. People always ask, how do I know if it's aligned? How do I know if this is an agreement? If you're in it, you're in some type of contract / agreement. Agreement just means it's a higher version of a contract in a sense, because you understand it. A lot of our soul contracts, we don't understand this while we're there. They were written when we were way before we got here. It's an oath we took, in a sense, to, and even ascension is the oath we took to ascend in this, in this iteration, in this, what's the word I want to use here? In this, I don't really want to use the word matrix. I don't know what word I want to use, but in this version in this existence, in this multi-dimensional existence, for us to ascend our consciousness, to ascend our body, to anchor in 12th dimensional realities. These are all things that we agreed to. We took oaths to do. And we had a lot of the contracts written along the way where we didn't even know that's what we agreed to. So agreements are just a more conscious form of a contract where you kind of know what you agreed to. And eventually you'll just ask to be shown those things. A lot of people will say, well, how do I know? Ask. Sometimes we don't want to see. That's what people will see. How come I can see other people's stuff, but I can't see mine? It's because we're all in ours. We're so in ours, we can't see it until we get away from it. And normally for me, that means at a higher consciousness. Once I get to a higher consciousness, then I can see it. Then I'm like, okay, now I can see what I couldn't see before, because you get the higher your consciousness goes, the higher your body vibration goes. It unlocks galactic intelligence, it unlocks higher mind intelligence, and you start to understand, oh, that's how that reality fit together. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Oh, that's why that kind of was a little bit backwards. Now I can see it. Now I understand. So when we start talking about accepting less, look at where we take less and where we give less. Where we don't do it, we know we could do, because it's not convenient for us. We don't really want to. I've seen this so many times play out in my realities. And after a while, that's why your realities get pared down very little, because what we realize is most of the time, our human realities, pretty much 99% of them, they're not aligned, and we can't align them. We can try to align them for a while. We can try to shift here and shift there. But if you're dealing with someone that's primarily in a human consciousness, it can be very hard to keep a relationship with them over long periods of time, because it just can't grow, because they're not in that space yet. And that's okay, because they're where they're supposed to be. It just might not be. We might have to go apart for a while for them to have different experiences, for them to get to a different part of their ascension process. So for me, 2023 is going to be very marked, and to stop accepting less. And the minute we stop, and sometimes just not saying it's not okay is accepting it too. A lot of times we don't have to say, yeah, that's great, I'll do that, or yeah, that's fine. When we don't say anything, we just continue to let the behavior go, or we stay in the timeline. Sometimes that's just our silent way of doing it, in a sense. We just stay in the timeline, and we don't want to shake up the timeline, because that means we have to do something. Oh, I might have to move. I might have to do this. So the minute we start to say no to stuff, and sometimes that can be your landlord, that can be the location you live in. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical person. It can just be the timeline you're in. And it feels like less. It feels like it's not where you want to be. If your body's getting tired, I used to be able to go out for longer periods of time, and then I got to the point where it was very trying on my body, because you can feel when someone's vibration shifts, and then it becomes more of a pulling energy, and the minute that happens, you'll get really tired. And it's almost instantaneous, unconsciously. That's how. So you might not recognize that consciously, like all of a sudden, oh, I got really tired all of a sudden. It's because the person's vibration shifted, and your body's got to overcompensate. So my body would have to overcompensate. If you're the highest vibration in the room, and that's not a judgment, that's just to explain the process. When you're the highest vibration in the room, and you're all of a sudden, you can go for a while, because everyone might be open and talking about certain things, and the conversation can feel very enlightened in a sense, or just you're talking about higher dimensional concepts, or maybe you're just not. Maybe everyone's just open to talk about whatever, and you can just feel when that shifts, and you get super tired, and it's instantaneous, because your body all of a sudden has to work super hard. That's how I know the timeline, even that mini timeline, just being out in that location, is over for me. The minute I get tired, I'm like, that's done, because it's shifted. The person shifted. I'm working too hard, and I'm getting too tired. I can't continue to keep it up, because you're kind of overcompensating for everyone else in the field, unless everyone's spending exactly the way you're spending. So it's just a big year to really look at what we accept, and you can also look at the systems we accept. Why is it okay? Why is it okay to have so many homeless people in the world? Well, why is that okay? Why is it okay in this country for that to happen and other people to have billions of dollars? Is that okay? Does that make sense? And sometimes there are bigger questions we ask. You know, we ask these questions sometimes and we feel like, yeah, but what can we do about it? Well, the change does start with us. You know, that we're the ones, we're the catalyst for the change in our reality. We're the catalyst for the change in humanity. We just don't believe we can do that. We think we have to make some sweeping, massive thing to do it, and we don't have to do that. So, you know, stop accepting less. Stop doing less when you can do more. And some days more might be, you know, just sleeping all day because you're anchoring in your template for next year and you're clearing something in your body that technically clears it for the template, clears it for the collectives in humanity. What are we not doing? When are we going back and playing in the old stuff? Because we don't want the judgment of someone, which is really our own judgment. It's always our own judgment of saying, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Or no, that's not acceptable. No, I'm tired of being there for you every time, but when I need something, you're the first one that's not there because it's not convenient. Where do we accept less? It is a massive question to ask yourself all the time. And you will find when you first start trying to align realities, that's the biggest thing. Accepting less. And it goes so much deeper than we think about how we are treated. You know, it is just such an immense kind of box to go into and go, let me just really look at where I accept less. And where for whatever reason I'm convinced myself that's okay when it's not okay. So, okay. I don't think I can say okay anymore. Keep practicing the art of intuition.